Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Sameen and I'm the Instructional Design Lead at LUMSx. And I welcome you all to the second webinar of our series, Learning How to Learn with Generative AI. So before we dive into the specifics of this webinar, I want to tell you a little bit about LUMSx. LUMSx is a digital learning center at LUMS. We work in 3 domains: teacher training, personal and professional development, and data science and IP. Our research team identifies gaps that exist in the local market, and through our learning products, we try to fill those gaps. So for those of you wondering what are our learning products, our learning products include asynchronous online courses, which are self-paced courses. We also have sync courses, जिसके अंदर live sessions होते हैं. We have hybrid courses, which are a mix of both. We also offer cohort-based courses in which you can take the course as a team and with a group of individuals. We also offer selected LUMS courses in the form of open courseware. So those videos are freely accessible on our YouTube channel. We also have online trainings and online workshops, and this is one of our workshops. So our value addition is that with each of our learning product, we try to cater to our local Pakistani and South Asian audience. So we do this by doing 3 things. First of all, we contextualize the content in Pakistan. So for example, एक हमारा course है teaching English as a second language. We use regional language that are spoken in Pakistan to teach strategies for learning English. So that content is very relevant to our students or learners in Pakistan. Secondly, we use local language. हमारे जो courses हैं वो bilingual होते हैं, and in most cases English और Urdu में offer होते हैं, so that our learners are able to understand the concepts better. और जो तीसरी चीज है वो ये है कि our subject matter experts are individuals who are actively working in their field in Pakistan and understand what our local learner needs. Our vision and mission is to ensure that we make education accessible to the masses of Pakistan by removing the barriers of demographics, finances, gender, which may be a factor in limiting access to many. Now, moving on to our webinar's introduction. So this webinar consists of 3 main sessions, which feature artificial intelligence experts from Pakistan, focusing on professional development, learning, and teaching. Over the past year and a half, artificial intelligence has become a prevalent topic of discussion. Through this series, we aim to inform our audiences in Pakistan about the available generative AI tools and how they can be utilized to enhance their work, teaching, and learning. Our goal is to initiate a dialogue on generative AI to raise awareness and explore the best practices for its use. In today's webinar, we will explore how generative AI is reshaping the learning landscape. We will understand the role of generative AI in personalized learning experiences and trends that are happening in learning globally. Participants will also gain insights into leveraging generative AI for their personal, professional, and academic learning. We will also talk about how language can also play a role in learning a new skill. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Hammad Malik. Hammad is the president of Uplift Initiative with a focus on AI research. Hammad leads a dynamic team dedicated to pioneering technologies that facilitate computer interaction in Pakistani languages, including Urdu, Punjabi, Pashto, Sindhi, and Balochi. Hammad brings a wealth of experience to the table, having spent 9 years at tech giants such as Apple and Amazon. During his tenure, he played a pivotal role in the development of English-based voice assistants such as Alexa and Siri, showcasing his expertise and innovation in the field. Hammad is also a LUMS alum and later went to Cornell to pursue his master's. Hammad is committed to using advanced technology for the betterment of society. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Hammad Malik. Hello, Hammad. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for such a kind introduction. I'm very glad to be here. You're right, AI will help us learn better a lot, and I'm very glad that LUMS is thinking more about how to leverage AI to improve our country's learning outcomes. So yeah, I hope today some people start seeing some of the ways they can improve their learning and how they can help others who struggle with learning um, get access to more knowledge easier.
Yes, for sure, Ahmad. I'm excited as well. So, पहला सवाल तो मैं आपसे ये पूछूंगी, which I ask every guest, is that how did you get interested in AI?
Yeah, so I have a interesting story on how did I, like the short answer is, we'll also do the long version, but the short answer is that when I realized how much potential there is to improve our economy and our social structure through problems that could not be solved before and they can be solved now through AI, that's when I really got interested. Um, and I'll give you the long version to kind of help understand what I mean by finding that, oh, we can really solve problems that couldn't be solved before. So originally I was in AI just because I was working on Alexa, right? Back then we were doing, and I joined it because it was cool back then, right? There was no other reason. It was just the cool thing. So back then in 2016, we were doing things like giving Alexa the ability to tell jokes, right? That was 2016. Now it seems such a basic thing, but back then it was cool enough that every single blogger was talking about, oh, Alexa can tell jokes now. So that's how I was kind of somewhat connected with AI. Later, I went to Apple, where we were doing information intelligence. So Siri can answer information related questions. And there we were using AI for things like disambiguation, right? For example, if you're saying Apple, do you mean news about Apple? Do you mean Apple stock? Do you mean Apple fruit? Can we use historic trends based on what's happening in the world today at this time to predict what you are really looking for, right? Or other simple things like if you're typing and searching for example, I worked on stocks. If you type A, usually you mean Apple, at least in USA, because that's like the most searched thing. But the days where a company called AMC is having huge fluctuations in its market prices, that's when most people mean AMC. So that should be like the first result. So we can use historic trends to predict that, which is helpful. And that was keeping me connected with AI because we were leveraging that. But overall, till about 2022, AI for me was just a tool to improve efficiency and help me be more lazy about my work. So you can let the AI solve the problems and then um, kind of also make stuff that helps people. But in 2023, once GPT came out, like ChatGPT came out, internally at Apple, a lot of things got restructured, and I got assigned to projects that were required very deep understanding of large language models and about modern ML. So I started properly studying what's going on in that world. And luckily for me, like I decided that, oh, I'll read every single paper that is relevant to voice technology and LLM, and I'll start with the oldest relevant one. So about in 2 months, I read about 20 to 30 papers, like fully focused, fully understanding what's going there. And because I did that at this accelerated pace where I studied like 10 years of stuff in like 2 months, I started seeing some patterns. And those patterns were that in almost every major research, there was just so much opportunity to help countries like Pakistan that were just left on the table just because the big companies funding those research, their interest was not aligned in benefiting, like making those things work for countries like Pakistan. And that is when I started thinking that maybe I finally found the thing that I'm passionate about. Um, and that's when I just took a leap of faith, left Apple, and be like, I'll just totally focus on this. And at that point, I didn't know what exact solution I'll work on. I just knew there are so many different things that if I dive deep without the distraction of work, we'll find something cool that is very helpful. And yeah, we have been doing it since December 2023, and we are surprised by how quick our progress has been in terms of finding what can help people and how much people are trying to help us. I'm usually based in Seattle. I'm here just for a few months, but we are already connected with so many influential people who are just trying to help us for nothing in return. So yeah, that's the long story of how I really got interested in AI. And the short version is because there is potential to solve problems that couldn't be solved before. And we'll talk later on about what those problems are.
Thank you so much for sharing, Hammad. And I feel like हमें आप जैसे और brave लोग चाहिए जो इस technology में भी believe करें and who are trying to do like something good out of this. So now I want to know about like what is the most exciting thing that is happening in this space according to you?
Yes, so for me, let me actually also share my screen, and I have some slides that kind of help with this. So like I mentioned, there were things on the table that were not explored, but that could benefit Pakistan. So before I talk more about that, let me give you some metrics that help put things in numbers. So in Pakistan, 42% of adults cannot read or write. So of all of our adult population, 42% cannot read or write. Currently, in like 2024, 44% of kids never make it out of middle school, which suggests that even in the next 10 years, literacy would be a huge issue. So this is just the ability to read simple things. Only 13% of the kids of the age that should be in metric, they actually enroll in metric or O level. So just 13% kids are actually passing class 10. So this is what we are working with. But what does this mean for people who cannot read or write? If you try to imagine, just imagine you could not read. Like if I could not read, and let's say I have मेरे पास दुकान है कपड़ा डाई करने वाली. So let's say now I have kids and I'm like, oh, I now want to grow my business so I can be a better father to my kid. And you're like, I'll improve it. And my complaints that I have is कि रंग उड़ जाता है कपड़े का, कपड़ा shrink हो जाता है ये वो. But now I want to do a better business, so I want to solve those problems. But because I cannot read, what can I do? Like the only thing I can really do is go to people for advice. And usually in my circle, people would not have the most scientific advice. I could try figuring out how to use YouTube to get that advice, but most content would be either too basic or be in English, right? So I couldn't really do much to improve my offering to my customers. So I'm kind of stuck in that business in a way where that cannot grow. Another good example is agriculture. So agriculture our yields are significantly lower than anyone else in the region with similar climate. And if someone cannot read and they want to increase their yield, they don't have much they can do. Like they do have people around them who can guide them, but the advice they get is outdated now, especially with climate change. Also, there are government centers that try to help, but the farmer to expert ratio is 1 to 7,000. And the quality of those experts giving advice is also questionable. So these were some of the metrics that I was kind of looking at the same time I was doing some research. And that is when it clicked that what if we can start building technology that in English, we can already speak to a computer. We have been doing it for like 7-8 years in Alexa and in Siri. They can now read Urdu, Punjabi, Pashto. They can understand it. They can also synthesize it. So what if we start giving people access to knowledge through simple voice interfaces? That is to me the most interesting thing at the moment, just because of the impact it can have. And to help people see that this is not some fantasy land, it's like really happening. I want to show some of the things that we are building at Uplift AI. And currently it's focusing on Urdu, but listen to this. This is like a real thing that many people are using today.
मुझे ये बताएं कि ये ई-रोजगार प्रोग्राम क्या है?
रोजगार प्रोग्राम पंजाब हुकूमत की जानिब से शुरू किया गया एक प्रोग्राम है जिसका मकसद नौजवानों को फ्रीलांसिंग की तरबियत देना है ताकि वो खुद को माशी तौर पर मुस्तहकम कर सकें। इस प्रोग्राम के तहत मुख्तलिफ टेक्निकल महारतों की तरबियत दी जाती है जैसे कि वेब डेवलपमेंट, ग्राफिक डिज़ाइनिंग, डिजिटल मार्केटिंग और कंटेंट राइटिंग वगैरह। इसका मकसद ये है कि पाकिस्तान के नौजवानों को आलमी सतह पर मुकाबला करने की सलाहियत दी जाए।
So you see here that voice understanding and synthesis is already kind of pretty good in Urdu, and we'll soon have it in Punjabi and then Pashto and other languages. The technology is there, just needs some effort to get it there. Another very interesting thing is image understanding. Here's an example with like Pakistani context in mind.
इस तस्वीर में फसल को क्या बीमारी है?
इस तस्वीर में दिखाई देने वाली फसल में जंग की बीमारी, रॉस्ट डिजीज, के आसार नजर आ रहे हैं। जंग की बीमारी फंगस की वजह से होती है और ये अमूमन गंदम, जौ और दीगर अनाज की फसलों को मुतासिर करती है। इस बीमारी की मुख्तलिफ अक़साम होती हैं, जैसे कि सियाह जंग, सुर्ख जंग और पीले जंग वगैरह। जंग की बीमारी से फसल की पैदावार में कमी आ सकती है और अगर बरवक्त कंट्रोल न की जाए तो ये फसल को शदीद नुकसान पहुंचा सकती है। ज़राअत में बीमारियों की तशख़ीस और उनके कंट्रोल के लिए मुख्तलिफ तरीक़े इस्तेमाल किए जाते हैं, जैसे कि मुज़ाहमती अक़साम की काश्त, फसलों की मुनासिब देखभाल और फिंगिसाइड्स का इस्तेमाल। अगर आपको अपनी फसल में ऐसी कोई बीमारी नज़र आए तो माहिरीन ज़राअत से राब्ता करना चाहिए ताकि वो मौजू तदाबीर और इलाज की सिफारिश कर सकें।
So exciting stuff. Like, this is very early. It didn't tell you exactly what to do to solve your problem. It didn't know कि आपने कौन सा बीज यूज किया हुआ था और उसकी वजह से कौन सा एग्जैक्ट पेस्टिसाइड यूज करना है, कितनी क्वांटिटी में यूज करना है, बट ऑल दोज थिंग्स विल वेरी क्विकली बी पॉसिबल. Here's one other thing which is very exciting in the same switch, which is document understanding. And let's again use it in Pakistani context. So here's this PDF written by this company that helps people improve their yield on wheat. So they have all these varieties and like what to do with different varieties of seeds, when to sow them, how much seed to put per acre, all of that. And here we can just give a system this document, and you can imagine that you cannot read English. Let's just imagine that for a moment. In this example, I'm using English to search, but this could have been Urdu or voice. And here you'll see that it will go through this fairly big document. It's 22 pages, find exactly the information that was asked. So you can see it kind of gave us exactly the correct answer. It also told us what time to sow those seeds. I could have also asked it by just typing. So overall, the theme I want people to kind of see is that now that computers can understand our language, understand pictures, understand documents, it's possible to create advisories for people who are not experts in things, but scale those advisories. Like we can have an agriculture advisory that tells people exactly what to do with like top-notch quality based on the best experts, but be available to every farmer. And the opportunity there is huge. Here's this program that India did, where they gave something similar to their farmers. They gave it to about 7,000 farmers. And in an 18-month experiment where they grew their crop like 3 times, on average, the yield increase was 21% per acre. Now, in the agriculture space, 21% can literally change the fate of a country. It's a huge number. It's billions and billions of dollars. And what's more interesting is that they did it with less pesticides, less fertilizer, and then even sold their product for more price than others who did not participate in this program. So this is the potential. This kind of excites me the most. And then the applications could be extended to vocational training, healthcare, having assistants for teachers in school, and more. So yeah, long answer to your question, but yeah, this is what is exciting me these days. And we're very confident that very soon, inshallah, in Pakistan, this would be a big thing.
This is very exciting, Hammad. Thank you so much for sharing. I really want to understand why is this possible now. But before we start that discussion, I also want to share similar clips with you guys so that we can then later discuss them together. So LUMSx is going to share their screen and we'll share the video with you guys shortly.
जब मैं बेहतर महसूस कर रहा हूं तो भी एंटीबायोटिक के इलाज का पूरा कोर्स मुकम्मल करना क्यों ज़रूरी है?
जब आप किसी इन्फेक्शन से निजात के लिए एंटीबायोटिक्स का कोर्स शुरू करते हैं तो अक्सर आपको चंद दिनों में ही बेहतर महसूस होता है, लेकिन इसका ये मतलब नहीं होता कि अब आप मुकम्मल तौर पर सेहतयाब हो गए। बीमारी के ज़ाहिरी अलामात खत्म होने के बावजूद भी जरासीम आपके जिस्म में मौजूद होते हैं, जो कि अगर एंटीबायोटिक का कोर्स छोड़ दिया जाए तो दोबारा से फ़ाल होकर बीमारी को बढ़ा सकते।
क्रिकेट में बॉल रिवर्स स्विंग करने का क्या तरीका है?
क्रिकेट में रिवर्स स्विंग एक जदीद तरीन तकनीक है जहां गेंद हवा में चमकदार साइड की तरफ हरकत करती है, रिवायती स्विंग के बरक्स जहां गेंद खुरदरी तरफ जाती। ये आमतौर पर इस वक्त होता है जब गेंद पुरानी होती है, आमतौर पर 40 या इससे ज़्यादा ओवर्स के बाद, जब एक साइड को मुस्तकिल तौर पर पॉलिश किया जाता है और दूसरा खुरदरा और पहना हुआ होता। रिवर्स स्विंग हासिल करने के लिए बॉलर को एक गेंद को बरकरार रखें, गेंद के एक साइड को मुस्तकिल तौर पर पॉलिश करें, जबकि दूसरी साइड खुरदरी और खुरदरी
इस तस्वीर को लफ्ज़ों में बयान करें।
ये तस्वीर एक मोटरसाइकिल पर सवार एक खानदान को दिखा रही है। मोटरसाइकिल को एक बालिग मर्द चला रहा है जिसने सफ़ेद शलवार कमीज पहन रखी है। इसके पीछे 2 छोटे बच्चे और 2 बच्चियां बैठी हुई हैं। बच्चों ने रंगीन कपड़े पहन रखे हैं और वो सब के सब मोटरसाइकिल की सीट पर बैठे हुए हैं। मोटरसाइकिल के आगे एक छोटा बच्चा खड़ा है जो हैंडल को पकड़े हुए है और शायद वो भी इस सफ़र का हिस्सा है। पस मंज़र में सड़क के दूसरी तरफ कुछ लोग और गाड़ियां नजर आ रही हैं जो कि एक शहरी माहौल की अक्कासी कर रहे हैं। ये तस्वीर एक आम मंजर पेश करती है जो कि जनूबी एशिया के शहरों में अक्सर देखने को मिलता है, जहां खानदान अक्सर एक ही मोटरसाइकिल पर सवार होकर सफ़र करते हैं।
इस तस्वीर को लफ्ज़ों में बयान करें।
ये तस्वीर एक बस को दिखा रही है जिसकी छत पर बहुत ज़्यादा सामान लदा हुआ है, जिसमें बड़े बड़े बोरे और 2 कारें भी शामिल हैं जो ऊपर एक दूसरे के ऊपर रखी गई है। बस की छत पर सामान का बेतरतीब ढेर लगा हुआ है जो कि खतरनाक हद तक ज़्यादा लग रहा है।
All right. Hammad, before you respond to it, I also want to put another question at you, and then we'll give you the whole control. और वो सवाल ये है कि Hammad, if you could define what learning is to you, if you could like just lay the foundation of what learning is, what it's supposed to be, and then like build this conversation. So over to you, Hammad.
Sure. So, like I've not been a academic student for like almost a decade now. So my definition of learning has changed now. And now it is more about whatever random thought comes to my mind. I want an answer to it without working hard to get that answer. I do have one quick slide that I can quickly share that kind of really puts a picture to what I mean here. Um, share. So is my screen visible? Okay. So this is like true story. So in Seattle, some of the new bridges have roads like this. So they have these grooves inside them. And I was very curious why it is like that. क्योंकि मुझे देखने में लगता था कि यार ये तो टायर के लिए बहुत खराब है. क्योंकि पाकिस्तान में तो स्मूथ रोड्स होती हैं. Why are they doing this? This must be really damaging my tire. And for the longest time, I like searched all over the internet, but couldn't find an answer because my search terms were weird. Like I was searching things like, for example, I was searching things like this, thin lines on the road, right? I just didn't know what to search for. And I was getting these responses, so I wasn't able to get my answer. And then I could just give it to an AI system and just write a very vague thing like, what is this pattern in the cement road? That's all I knew about this image. The road, I knew it was cement based. And the AI told me everything I needed to know. Yeah, so the AI told me everything needed to know. The summary of what the reason is, it's mainly noise reduction. This kind of a thing helps reduce noise. It also helps with traction and other things. And I also learned a fun story about how this happened. It happened because there was a time when USA was about to ban cement roads because of how loud they were. And then all the cement manufacturers, they started funding professors who figure out how to reduce noise, but still use cement because that's how we make money. And then the researchers came up with this pattern that reduced the noise more than like the simple roads without cement, and also had additional benefits. So yeah, that is learning to me these days, like whatever random thought comes to my mind, just get a quick answer to it without working hard. Here's another example.
The pattern you see on the cement road is known as concrete pavement 2 drainage.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
The pattern you see on the cement road is known as concrete.
Okay, so this is another example. This one is very interesting. This image, you see these 6 lines. These are also bumpy, so they're kind of uncomfortable on the road. I had been seeing them for a long time, and it took me months before I was like, okay, let's take out a camera. Maybe if I take a picture and ask an AI system, it can answer that. And unfortunately, ChatGPT wasn't able to do it. But what I did was I just went to Google search and said, find me similar images. And then one of the similar images told me the name of this thing. And then it turned out they do that to help divide the load between different cement blocks, because these roads are cement blocks. So yeah, that's what learning is to me, just like finding answers to these weird random questions that come to my mind as I'm going about my day. So yeah, and I think we can also take this moment to go back and talk more about learning with AI. Would this be the right time to do that?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so let's go ahead into that. So here's an example again from like real life where I'm trying to learn more about farming, right? I just want to know the basics. And today it's become much easier with AI. So here's a real example. I could just go to an AI system and tell it, hey, tell me everything about farming in Punjab. And then I also tell it that I'm trying to grow wheat, so it gives me the right thing that I want to understand. And this is a great way to get started. And if I didn't have this, the other alternatives take much longer. And here it tells me about everything from land preparation, choosing the variety of seeds. Everything here is luckily correct, which can be a problem sometimes with these systems. It tells me about the correct sowing times, or at least tells me that I need to think about these things if I'm trying to learn farming. Tells me about irrigation, fertilization, weed control. And then once I have a basic overview, I can go into some of the topics in more detail through like more questions. For example, here I said that I want to learn more about irrigation, but use images if they are helpful, right? And then just tricks like these, like use them if they are helpful, or where they are helpful, will just make sure it doesn't give me images where they're not helpful. And now it's telling me all about irrigation with images, which makes it so much quicker and easier to understand different type of um, irrigation methods, right? So there's this one, sprinkler based. For a long time, I've been hearing about drip irrigation should be done more in Pakistan because it helps conserve water, but I never knew what drip irrigation was. And just looking at this picture tells me that, oh, you have pipes which have small holes, so you can systematically and precisely give moisture to plants based on how much they need. So yeah, this is one other example of learning with AI. And people should explore this kind of a thing more often. Going further, just in this journey of learning about how to do wheat stuff, I can follow on and say, tell me more about pests and diseases, and again, use images where helpful. And now I know at least the basics of the different diseases. Again, all of this is correct. I have double checked. This stuff I haven't read more about, but yeah. So yeah, this is one way you could really benefit from this kind of technology. Going back here, there's some more interesting things. For example, here, I was writing these numbers about the potential impact on GDP from improving yield and how much farmers we reach. But the title here, I was just, at that point, my brain wasn't working and I was just calling it GDP increase, but it wasn't very descriptive. So all I did was I took a picture of this, gave it to an AI system, and I asked it what would be a better name for this graph. And it gave me a pretty good answer. We'll wait for it. So here, again, I'm using a trick. Currently, the title is GDP increase, just to make sure that it's easier for the system to know that this is the title. And here you can see it gave me a pretty good title, which is projected GDP increase from yield improvement in agriculture. And these small things sometimes take a lot of brain power that you can kind of offload to AI systems to help you with. A lot of people in doing coding do these kind of things these days. So yeah, these are some of the interesting things. Another interesting thing, again, learning with AI. So back to this example, here farmers are just being told, because many of them don't speak Hindi, they have their own local language, and many of them cannot read, write. This is India, similar problems, but they started giving audio messages that told them, based on your location, do this with your crop. And then farmers could also take a picture of their plant up through WhatsApp, and then the system would analyze it and recommend them things to do. Additionally, they also had access to some soil testing facilities, but just these simple things, very cheap to do, very scalable, huge impact, 21% yield increase for a fairly large 7,000 test group. And now they're doing it with almost 500,000 farmers, which would help India a lot in improving their yield. So this is another way of learning with AI. And just to create more motivation, it's not directly about how you can use learning with AI, but these are some of the yield numbers that, again, I mostly use AI to help me find sources of this data. But here, the takeaway is that in almost every crop, we are significantly behind other countries in per acre yield. For example, in rice, we are about 77% behind other similar countries in terms of climate and soil, and similar numbers in others. And if we can even improve that 15% for, let's say, 10% of the farmers, that's $1 billion in GDP increase. So huge potential. So yeah, this is like a summary of what is, to me, how AI can help with learning. I've intentionally not talked much about how students can use it or how a particular teacher can use. Instead, I've tried to show things from my real life about how I am using it so people can just get a little excited and then imagine new ways they should use it. But I would say if you want to take just one thing away from this is to whatever comes to your mind that is not important enough for you to go take out a laptop and do a proper search, just give some AI system a chance, which could be ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever else you have access to. Just give it a chance once or twice, and very soon it would become a multiple times a day thing because it would be so convenient and your brain will love just learning new interesting things. Yep, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Hammad. And I feel like what I really like about this is that everyone is a learner, right? There's lifelong learning and we're learning throughout our lives. So we don't necessarily have to be in the profession of teaching or be a student to, continuously learn. और एक बहुत जरूरी चीज ये है, और जब generative AI was like became a big thing last year as well, everyone started talking about कि इससे कितना ज्यादा डिवाइड हो जाएगा, राइट? एंड आई थिंक लैंग्वेज एक बहुत बड़ी उसके अंदर चीज फैक्टर करते हैं. वी शुड फैक्टर इन द लैंग्वेज एज वेल, बिकॉज ऑल ऑफ दीज great tools are like in a certain language and their data sets are derived from that language. So it's for a particular sect of people who have access to that data and who are able to understand that data. So what I really appreciate about our conversation today is that we're talking about our regional language और किस तरह से हम पाकिस्तान के लोगों के लिए वो एक्सेस को बढ़ा सकते हैं कि they are able to also engage with AI, and even if they don't know how to speak English or learn or like read it, right? So that's one thing that I really appreciate. However, मैं आपको एक स्टूडेंट की प्रॉब्लम भी दूंगी which I really want you to demonstrate for us. So let's say that like we talked about farmers, वो कैसे learn कर रहे हैं. आप as an individual who came across this thing on a road, had no idea about it, how you learned about it. But obviously we can't ignore this big chunk of learners जो कि हमारे students हैं. So अगर एक student है who's like writing an essay, let's say, so the topic is the impact of climate change on agriculture in Pakistan. So they have to investigate the effects of climate change, changing weather patterns, maybe water scarcity on agricultural productivity, food security, and rural livelihoods in Pakistan. So how would a student then go about it, and how would they use this AI tool to help them, make sense of or maybe research on this essay that they have to write?
Yeah, great. I'll put you on the spot. So this is the question you asked. Let's actually give just 1 minute and I'll ask you to tell me how you would do it if you didn't have AI. So let's collaboratively do it. What would be the first thing you would do if you didn't have access to AI? And our intention is to just kind of create an outline here.
Okay, so I think सबसे पहली चीज that I would do is like I would break down like the prompt.
No,
So
we are not using AI. We are using our old school thing. How would you have done it before AI?
I think I would first like go about defining climate change and what it means for agriculture in Pakistan.
Define climate change and agriculture. Okay. What else? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but this would make it fun.
No worries. I did not expect this, Hammad, but it's okay. I'm also learning.
What happened?
So I think जो next चीज है, अच्छा अब हमने उसके effects को investigate करना है, right? So अब इसके अंदर क्या क्या चीजें factor in करती हैं? I will start thinking about that.
I'm sorry, we lost your voice. Can you repeat?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. So I think the next thing that I would do is like factor in कि क्या क्या चीजें हमें factor in करनी चाहिए climate change के अंदर. जैसे कि अब एक weather patterns हैं, और वाटर स्कार्सिटी की बात की, इस तरह की चीजें।
Disconnect what? Zoom or the screen? Sorry, we are having a technical difficulty. Just give us one moment.
Sure.
Okay, I can just try doing it directly on my screen. Okay, so we're back in some way. Can you see my screen?
Not very well. Matlab, I can't see what's written. Okay, now it's good. Yeah.
Okay,
works.
so sorry, let's go back to, so we said we would define climate change first and agriculture. We'll define agriculture then.
Then I think I had more time to think while you were facing that glitches. So good works worked out for me. I think now I would talk about the context. अब पाकिस्तान के अंदर हम climate change की बात कर रहे हैं, तो पाकिस्तान के अंदर कौन कौन सी चीजें contribute कर रही हैं climate change को?
Context on climate change. Okay, anything else?
I think, and then what I would do is like अभी इसके अंदर जो हमारे पास टॉपिक है उसके अंदर उन्होंने काफी चीजें लिस्ट डाउन की हुई हैं, तो मे बी उनको मैं लिस्ट डाउन करूंगी और देखूंगी कि अच्छा ये जो ऊपर वाली चीजें हैं इनका इम्पैक्ट अलग-अलग से इसके ऊपर
Sure.
वेदर
ठीक,
पैटर्न्स के
I
ऊपर
can,
किस तरह.
yeah, I can add something. So for example, if I was doing it, I would focus a lot on research, right? I would want to do some research. The first thing I need to know is what are the sources of information, right? So sources of info. Where can I find real statistics about productivity per acre of a farm? And for each year, where can I find the relevant historic climate data so I can try to link those two, right? Make sense?
Yes.
Right? And then so many other things. But let's now try doing this thing through AI. And I wrote this prompt for it. So here the prompt is exactly the topic of the essay. And then in addition to that, I told it, how should I approach research for this essay? I want to be data driven. And now I'm getting this response. It's telling me what I could do to be like starting with focus areas, climate trends, temperature rise, rainfall. This can help me with figuring out what's my structure of the essay, agriculture impact, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all of this is fine, but this is the fun stuff. Now, without spending hours figuring out the sources of information, it's telling me here are some sources of information. That can be helpful in getting answers to some of those complicated questions. Then it's telling me some of the academic work. So this is correct. There is this thing. It's also telling me I could get information from Google Scholar. Then it's also telling me that suggestion of looking at trends about climate rise and comparing the correlation with climate, right? See, like that seems to be the fundamental thing that any good essay on this topic should focus on. It also previously told me the sources of data, so that should be easy. Then it's also suggesting structure for the essay, but also giving some good suggestions on focusing on a narrow area within that to make it more manageable, but also be more deep and helpful in my essay. Does that show a good picture of how AI can help? Should we talk more about particular parts of it?
I think that shows a really good picture, Hamad, but I also want you to talk about कि अभी जो जिस तरह से हम like what we hear from teachers especially is that like there's a lot of copy pasting going on. Whenever you give like an assignment with access to tools like these. So I just want you to give us more ideas on, or like another idea on like how you can use that for learning and not just plagiarize stuff. There are other ways to go about it.
Today,
right?
at least today, if you're doing anything deep and thoughtful like this topic, AI cannot really give you a good essay. We can try it, right? I can change this to write me an essay. Oops. Right. Come on. So people who have been trying this and students have tried it, maybe it helps you with grade 10th assignment. If it doesn't require some proper research, it will give you an answer. Actually, looks like Gemini refuses to write the essay. Instead, it's focusing on the same thing about how to write it. But ChatGPT would actually write it. So let's actually try ChatGPT here. Write the essay in, let's say, 1000 words. So once this writes it and you read it, you would find that it is so generic that it doesn't really become a good essay. And for anyone who really wants to kind of create something good and use their time to write something good, this wouldn't be very beneficial. Now, sure, there is that cheating aspect by just copy pasting, but I think just as a society, everyone will learn just like they learned with calculators to just assume that kind of basic thing is available, and then math becomes about more complicated things related to problem solving. So yeah, that would be my answer to it, that currently AI can help you a lot by on thinking about structure, brainstorming, and all of that, but it cannot really write a good piece of content that is new and thoughtful. Yeah. And we should just learn that it can give basic things, but wouldn't give us a very detailed response, similar to calculators or plotting tools or so many other things available today.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Hammad. And I think I agree with it. Like, you can use it as for brainstorming, but when you want to produce something unique, you want to write a really good essay, it might be like asking for this tool too much. It can't produce something unique. Sure, it can be good, but not as unique. And in order for us to use it correctly, we need like the right balance of, human and artificial intelligence. Thank you so much for sharing, Ahmad. So now I want to move to our question and answers session. So we have a couple of questions. मैं हमारे जो guests हैं जिन्होंने अभी तक कोई सवाल नहीं पूछा, if there's anything that you want Hamad to answer, please feel free to use the chat and leave your question there, and I will relay your question to Hamad. तो आपने सवाल अभी हमारी chat में छोड़ सकते हैं. So Hamad, there's a question that Umair keh rahe hain, this is amazing. I'm curious how we are training the AI model. Where do we get the data sets from?
Yeah, so we are doing something very unique. Again, we had to think about how to be very. So let me take a step back. So let's just focus on voice technology. When you read the papers, you see that, oh, Urdu is working fine with like 1,000 hours of data, and English is working amazing with like 54,000 hours of weekly supervised training data. And then you're like, oh, why is there just 1,000 hours of Urdu data and so much more of other data? And the answer is simple, that, oh, there's not enough content online with transcripts. And in English, there is so much data because there are even some laws that require the transcript to be there, especially if you're broadcasting something to a large public, just for accessibility, right? And that creates a lot of content through just subtitles on videos. Then you start thinking about what can we do to get more Urdu data, and you do the math and you're like, oh, fortunately or unfortunately, labor is cheap in Pakistan. There are thousands of students. What if we start building partnerships with schools and allowing students to volunteer to record their voices or to hear someone else's voice and type it out? And you do the math and it's like, oh, 54,000 hours is nothing. can be done for almost no cost if you build the right partnerships. So that's what we are doing. That's what will help us do things that are not possible today, like Balochi language, at accuracy as good as English.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing, Hammad. एक comment है from Avana. She's saying, I used a prompt as plant pathogen, specifically rust and smuts, diagnosed the symptoms and provided excellent examples, which I used to prepare a practice worksheet. Very cool way to learn. Thank you so much for sharing, Amna. And if you could also share what platform you used for that, it would be great. So, Ahmed, you can ask your questions. Please type your questions and I will relay them to Hammad. Hammad, एक और सवाल आया है. Is Uplift AI available in open market?
So it is available to some people. It's very expensive to run at the moment, so we are not actively sharing how to join. It got leaked somehow, so we currently have like almost 2,000 people using it. But hopefully soon we'll be ready to share it at a larger scale.
Okay, thank
But
you.
it is available for demos to people who know us too.
Yeah. So आमना कह रही हैं कि उन्होंने ChatGPT यूज की थी अपने उसके लिए. So it's very exciting to see people also trying new things and learning new things using these tools. अच्छा, we have a participant who wants to ask question, तो वो भी लिख रहे हैं while they type. I have a question for you. Hammad, like when I have also been like experimenting and very excited about generative AI in general as well. But I really feel like that we need to talk about how we should not take whatever these tools give us as it is, right? थोड़ी सी introspection, थोड़ी सी speculation जरूरी है. I really want you to spend like maybe a couple of minutes talking about like how we can sort of see के किस तरह से bias और क्या ethical implications हैं जो data है उसकी on our learning.
So
और
I
डेटा
think
किस तरह मतलब जो सोर्सेज हैं वो किस तरह से स्टीरियोटाइप्स को रिएटरेट कर सकती हैं.
I personally just don't like these. I think it's just not fair to the people working so hard to build these things to get into these problems, because it just seems counterproductive. So I personally just take the stance that there would be these problems. Everything have its own problems, but let's focus on the positives, and with time, these shortcomings would be fixed. So now that said, I think there's one thing that's fair to discuss, which is how it can give you the wrong information with such convincing words that you believe it. For example, I was once asking it how to file some text related stuff, and it very convincingly told me the wrong address of where to file the paperwork. And then it also said, oh, this address is used by people in Washington, California, and blah, blah. It seemed super legit. Just luckily, I just was like, let's double check this. And it was wrong. So that is one thing I think whenever you're doing any kind of important thing, once you have the basic information from it, just double check it. This problem is getting better, but last time I checked, 90% of the data given, or like the examples given by important systems like ChatGPT, are correct and 10% are still wrong. But there is research. There are some new systems that have achieved like 95% accuracy in factual things. So these things will get better, but there's still much work to be done. So for now, do double check anything important.
Right. Thank you so much, Mad. So we have another question. Can you please elaborate on the generative part of AI? Like, how is it different from traditional AI? Do both analyze based on historic data?
Yes. So in my opinion, generative AI means nothing. It's just a buzzword, just like big data means nothing. generative AI means nothing. So people should just ignore anytime someone says generative AI and just listen it as AI. You're absolutely right. There's no difference. It sees historic data, predicts the future data. The only thing different is the scale at which things are working. And that's about it. But in the end, it is just taking historic data, predicting future things. And yeah, I think generative AI just became this popular term just because in media usually like you need that buzzword to kind of get the message across. And generative became that new buzzword when Dolly came out, but it means nothing.
Right. Thank you so much. So, Hammad, the next question is, which sectors would be the most impacted by this? Are there any stages in children's growth where AI could hinder learning?
It's hard for me to say where. I don't think I currently have that kind of a broad view into these technologies to be able to accurately make prediction. But it does seem like in Pakistan, at least, just knowledge equity would be a huge thing that this would help with. And it goes back to like 50 to 42% of people not being able to read. And now they can access information just by speaking, right? So that's a huge thing. I would encourage people to just take 15 minutes after this and just imagine that you cannot read. Just like deeply imagine it. Like, how would you do each thing? I was talking to this person who couldn't read, but he had a smartphone. And I was like, how do you use it? What do you use it for? He told me it's mainly for WhatsApp. So I asked, how do you make calls? He's like, oh, I look at the images. I was like, makes sense. But how do you add a new contact? So he's like, oh, then I have to wait for someone. I ask people around if someone can do it. My kid can read, so I ask him when he's around. Then I was like, how do you change settings? And he told me that he he's very careful not to press anything that he doesn't know, because that could change things and then he'll be stuck, right? So that's the reality of how many people still are using technology, right? By just kind of, but nothing is really made for them. Google never made anything with focus on people who cannot read. It's unlikely they will make anything. I think we will have to do it within our country because it will help us. It unlikely to help Google in any way. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to also notice how people learn and how, like, who can't really access the main feature but are still working their way around it.
Yeah, there's this. I recently learned that there's this very influential person who is starting a whole channel about agriculture. And the whole channel, all it will do is tell people what the good practices of farming are in different parts. And the fact that he was able to make that thing financially feasible kind of shows how much opportunity there is. Um, Channels are kind of a outdated and expensive way to give information, right? But it is still working. And that's just mainly because we never really focused on um, a large part of our society and how they are getting information, which they are not through technology, unfortunately.
Yeah. हमाद एक और सवाल है, which AI is best for scientific research?
Maybe Gemini would be the best. If you have access to, in my experience, Gemini is pretty good. But if you have access to the paid version, which is $20 a month, but I haven't done any systematic research into it. I would encourage you to just look up papers who are trying to study these things. And they would have much better answers. For example, in math, at least according to recent papers, which I haven't deeply studied, but apparently Claude is doing the best in math. But then when you look at it, also question the metrics they are using, because other than OpenAI, it seems like everyone else is playing with metrics to make their system look the best.
Right. Thank you. Hammad, how do you think the attitude change can be made possible, such as in farmers, entrepreneurs, etc., so that they can use AI more effectively?
So I think attitudes will just change when people see the value. Like, look at phones. We currently have, I was reading some metrics, more than 85% tele density in Pakistan. Just 10 years ago, when I was in LUMS, I remember I was one of the few kids who had a smartphone. That too in the final year, I think. Before that, I had a BlackBerry, which was considered pretty cool back then, but it wasn't a smartphone. So things have changed a lot in a fairly short amount of time, and that's what would happen with AI. I think we should focus on how we can benefit from it, and also tell people how we are benefiting from it, and that would just start that trend, just like it happened with phones or with WhatsApp. WhatsApp is an amazing example where just people told each other that, oh, this is great, and it just spread. So yeah, use it yourself and just find opportunities to tell people how it's helping you, and then people will use it.
Right. Hammad, can AI be an author in an article?
I don't know. Can AI be an author in an article?
I think आप site to कर सकते हैं, right? Not really sure
I
if
think
you can like
I
cite
don't
as a
know.
co-author.
Uh, like, we can get into what's the definition of an author. Sure, if AI system wrote it, it is kind of it though it is based on historic stuff, it is new stuff, right? No one else had written that exact combination of words. So you can say that, just like when we are generating images these days, many news articles come with a generated image, and then there's a small asterisk saying generated with AI. So sure, do it. But yeah, I don't know if like these kind of nuances and small things really help with anything. So just feel free to do how it wanted, but don't make systems that pretend to be human, but they are not, because that has a lot of like negative impacts.
Right. Amna is saying this is an important point to stress that we need double checking specifically mathematical data. I used an example to generate a matrix, but its calculations were not correct given the instructions to fill in the cells. So I usually do double check, but it's only for maths. But it shouldn't be only for maths, it should be for everything, right? As Hammad also mentioned, हर चीज को double check करना जरूरी है. AI also hallucinates, so need to make sure that the information is correct. There's
Yeah, so
another way. Go ahead.
yeah, math needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of work, and most probably what would happen is that we'll have these systems that when they need to do a math, they would go to a math system and do the math instead of the large language model trying to do the math, because they're just not. It's just like when, as a human, I have to do the math, I go to a calculator to do it, or start a new thread in my brain where I take a page and pencil and solve the equation, and then come back and put that number in my article. So that's how it would be, most likely. But yeah, in addition to math, though it's perhaps biggest place where it makes very clear mistakes, it is making mistakes everywhere. It's just obvious in math because we know math, but in most of the content it's generating, we don't know what the reality is, so we assume it's correct.
Right. Thank you. हमारे एक और बड़ा specific सवाल है. Which AI tool is best for auditors and finance professionals?
There was one that came out that claimed to be the best. I think Claude again, but I don't know. I haven't looked into this. Again, I would encourage you to try everything and just see what gives you good answers, and go with that. But also, if you're just getting started, just starting with ChatGPT 4, it's pretty good start. But at the moment, I think we're maybe a year or two away from like having very specialized systems that work very well on these things. But I don't know how good they will be in Pakistani auditing and law versus like where they are being designed.
Right. Thank you so much, Hammad. I think this brings us to an end. Let me check. Brings us to an end of our question and answer session. If you guys want to ask more questions, we still have some time. Feel free to ask. In the meanwhile, I'll just read out a message. Thank you for the session, Hammad. Very productive again. Appreciate LUMSx's effort in opening the avenue for interactive learning through arranging these discussions and with industry experts and practitioners. Thank you, Moiza, for such a nice comment. Hopefully, you guys continue to attend and we develop this community. Thank you for your work. I really hope this tool is eventually accessible to people in Pakistan.
Hopefully, yeah.
People are waiting for your tool, Hammad, now. No pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I hope some people took away, just again, going back to the original thing, just try it a few times and try it for things that you would have never taken out time to actually learn about. And hopefully soon you'll be a big fan and learning a lot of cool stuff quickly.
Yeah. We will also share the feedback form. So I would request you all to please spend 1 minute on the feedback form and help us learn and help us inform our future incoming sessions as well. तो प्लीज आपसे जो लिंक हम शेयर कर रहे हैं आप उसको फिल करें और हमें अपनी फीडबैक दें आपको कैसा लगा वेबिनार क्या चीज आप देखना चाहेंगे प्लीज डू दैट and Hammad, one last thing that I would request from you is that if you could leave our audiences with a message on how to start their learning journey with AI, just one tiny message that you want to give.
Yeah, I would repeat the same thing, just any random thought that comes to your mind that is not important enough for you to take out time to investigate, give AI a chance, and it will just spark those things in your brain that will then just in my experience, what will happen then is, because of that wow feeling that, oh, I got this cool answer in such a short amount of time, then every time you have a real thing you need to research, your brain will just connect it and be like, oh, let's also give it a chance here.
Yeah, and I think just to build on what you were saying, कि आप जितना ज़्यादा interact करेंगे, जितने ज़्यादा सवाल पूछेंगे, उतने ज़्यादा you will like just get deep into that, and you'll end up learning more about the tool. In fact, and it becomes more interesting.
I have some fun examples, like I don't know अभी भी ऐसे होता है कि नहीं, but when I was in 10 years ago पाकिस्तान में जब मैं था तो छिपकलियों का एक बहुत बड़ा मसला था, right? अगर अभी भी है so just ask AI, figure out, like, use it, spend 5-10 minutes, figure out what you can do about that. And I haven't tried it, but you might find some really amazing answers that actually help.
Well, here's an idea for you all. Yeah. You all can try and see what it suggests and write back to us as well. But I think Hammad,
do forward that to me if someone finds a real solution. It would be an interesting thing for future talks to share. Yeah,
why not? We're all learning. Hammad, एक बहुत अच्छी बात लगी मुझे आपके मैसेज की कि keep trying, because a lot of people are still very hesitant and resistant कि अच्छा ये नई चीज है इसको कैसे करना है. So there's still that fear and anxiety on as to like, how do we use it? Do we trust it or not? So Khudi, I think like the more we try, the more we get into it, we'll understand and just figure out yourself. And the only way to do that is to just get hands-on with AI.
Absolutely.
With this note, we'll wrap up our session. Thank you so much, Hammad, for the wonderful talk and session with our participants and for responding to all the questions. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending the session. I would request once again कि आप लोग please feedback हमें दें, and if you want to check out our courses or our products, we have shared our social media links. You can follow us, you can visit our website, and collaborate with us. And we'll see you with the next session soon, hopefully. Till then, Allah Hafiz. Take care.